What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, this is apparently gained traction in the pathetic state that basketball community is in right now. And that is that somehow Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game never happened. I'm starting to see this more and more. I'm starting to have more of my subscribers tell me about this. And it's just a sad state of affairs that we're in right now. I remember about a year ago, maybe a little bit less than a year ago, I did a video about LeBron supposedly saying something about that. I think it was secondhand information, though. I think it was one of his former teammates. It might have been Iman Shumpert, or it might have been J.R. Smith. Somebody like that, I think, came out and said that LeBron used to always say, how do we even know that 100-point game even happened? He could have been holding up that sign to just be saying a happy 100th birthday to somebody. Some stupid shit like that. First of all, let me just say, you notice that these clowns that talk about this, they never, these are the same people that, or same group of people that say Harriet Tubman never existed, Sojourner Truth never existed, slavery never existed, Nat Turner never existed, even though you can find documentation on the arrest of Nat Turner if you look at South Carolina records. There's secondhand accounts from notable people who confirm the existence of Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. And of course slavery existed. But these are individuals who are full of self-loathing and self-hatred. Because you notice they never say, well, how do we know Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs? There's no footage of the games. How do we know that George Washington existed? He could be a crisis actor. But they'll never do that. They'll never do that because I know their motivations behind this. And most people that do this Wilt Chamberlain shit, deny the existence of this game, most of them are extreme ludiclics. I mean, people that have posters of LeBron James on their walls and sheets with LeBron and perhaps other questionable objects with his name written on it. But anyway, let's just talk about this. So, I seen one person say, the reason why I don't believe it is, how did Wilt go 28 or 32 from the line? He was a 51% free throw shooter. How could he go 28 or 32 from the line? I don't believe it. Well, a couple things I want to point out. If it wasn't for the fact that we could see footage on social media, or maybe we taped the game, some of us. If I told you that Mr. Triple Single, Draymond Green, who's never averaged double-figure points, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. If I told you, or if he did barely, if I told you in Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals that Draymond Green had almost a 40-point triple-double, if you didn't see that video, if you didn't see that game, would you have believed me? Nope. But it did happen. We saw it. Also, why is it so hard to believe that he scored 100 points if he was averaging 50 points per game that season? Oh, another point I want to make. Early in his career, Wilt was a slightly better free throw shooter. Not great, but slightly better. For his career, he was 51%. He had some seasons later on he was as bad as 38% for a season. But the 61-62 season, when he went to the line 17 times a night, he shot 61%, which isn't great, but it's 10 points better than his career average. So he was shooting a little bit better. Part of the reason why he was a bad free throw shooter was psychological, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was so strong, right? But everybody gets into rhythms. You have those special nights. You know what I'm saying? What's his name, man? I know his name. Tony Delk. Tony Delk averaged, I think, 8 points a game for his career. 8 points a game. But Tony Delk had a 53-point game. I think back in 2001 against his former team. Now, was it likely that you would expect something like that from him, given that he only averaged 8 points a game in the NBA? Not really. Right? Wilt Chamberlain also had a 78-point game. So why don't people say that, well, why don't they question that game? Because it's not the record. So if Wilt had a 73-point game and a 78-point game and all these numerous 50-point games, why is it so hard to believe that in a game in 1962, when teams were averaging, 130 possessions per ball game, and a man that was playing 48 minutes a night, right, stayed on the court all game, in a game where the final score was 169-147, why is it so hard to believe that he scored 100 points? Kobe scored 81 in an era where the pace was much slower. So why the fuck is it hard to believe that in a game where, once again, teams were averaging 18 points, 119 points a game. The Sixers were averaging the Warriors were averaging 125 points a night. Teams are averaging 130 possessions. 130. Why is it so hard to believe that he scored 100 points? Next point I want to make. Someone said, well, why was this game held in Hershey, Pennsylvania? Well, the NBA at that time was not the NBA of today. All right? It was improving, but, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the NBA was 2 years away from a TV contract. 2 years away. That's why there's so much more footage of Wilt playing against Russell when he was a member of the Sixers and the Lakers rather than his stint with the Philadelphia Warriors, later on the San Francisco Warriors, later on the Golden State Warriors. That's part of it. You sometimes see newsreel footage. So the footage that you are seeing are usually local newsreel affiliates. But television games, broadcast games, the NBA was a couple years away from that. Now, the old DeMont Network, the only reason why the DeMont Network is sort of famous is because that's the network that Jackie Gleason came over in 1952. He made DeMont Network when he used to host his old show called Cavalcade of Stars. He came over in 1952, signed with CBS, and started the Jackie Gleason show, which dominated the airwaves for about 4 or 5 years. Of course, he had the Honeymooners. But anyway, the NBA used to have a contract with the DeMont Network in the mid-50s, but by that point, the DeMont Network was on its way to folding. It was dying. So the NBA didn't really have a contract until, I think, 1964, I believe it was. And that contract was with ABC. And I think they kept that contract well into the 70s. And then after that, that's when they had the contract with CBS from, I think, the late 70s into around 1991, or I think it was 1990. And that's when the NBC took over. A lot of us young people remember that. So there's no footage of this game. But there are people that watched the game. There are people that was there more than as many as people that claimed, but it was, I think, 4,000 people in attendance that watched the game. Not to mention the coaches, the officials that were at the game, that participated in the game. They participated in the game. Players participated in this game. So let me get this straight. This is another one of those grand conspiracies that you the dick licks love to make up. Sort of like how Arnold Schwarzenegger apparently is in on this conspiracy to exaggerate about Wilt Chamberlain's strength. You guys are pathetic. You're disgusting. And you're everything that's wrong with sports talk. This is why sports talk is in the gutter, in the sewer, because of you. Lame brain, low IQ nitwits. And last but not least, statisticians were there to record everything. There's a radio broadcast that was broadcast in the game. Now, I believe the radio broadcast or the radio simulation that we hear today was a rebroadcast or a redo of the original broadcast. I think that's not the original audio, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not certain about that. But I think the original radio broadcast was heard of the game. Most of it's been lost, but it was originally heard. Especially by people that lived in Hershey, Pennsylvania. The game happened. Okay? No matter how much you want to wish it away, no matter how much you guys want to erase these legends from the history books, they happened. Whether you like it or not. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game happened. Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs. Slavery happened. Harriet Tubman was a real person. Sojourner Truth was a real person. Marcus Garvey was a real person. Malcolm X was a real person. Nat Turner was a real person. Malcolm X was a real person. Stokely Carmichael was a real person. Fred Hampton was a real person. Not crisis actors. Lord have mercy. You're telling me that in an age when the average Southern black person in the 19th century couldn't even read or write, somehow they were crisis actors? You guys are so dim-witted, man. Jesus. High IQ morons. Misplaced knowledge in a pea brain.